The Mafia boss noticed his waitress hadn't shown up for 3 days. Annoyed, he went to check on her himself. What he found in that rundown apartment, a sick child, unpaid bills, and a truth about his own organization, shattered everything he thought he knew. He came to fire her. He left ready to burn his empire down. Rafael Moretti didn't do patience well. He stood in the doorway of his cafe, arms crossed, watching the morning rush stumble through like zombies chasing caffeine. The espresso machine hissed. Plates clattered. Someone burned toast again. But his eyes kept drifting to the empty section by the window, Clara's section. 3 days. 3 days without a word. Where's Clara? Raphael's voice cut through the breakfast noise. The other waitress, Jenny, nearly dropped her coffee pot. Nobody liked it when the boss showed up unannounced, especially not this boss. Most of the staff didn't know Rafael Moretti owned half the businesses on 5th Street, or that his consulting firm handled problems the police couldn't or wouldn't touch. Jenny's hands shook slightly. She called Monday morning, said there was an emergency, sounded really upset. And nothing. She hasn't answered her phone since. Raphael's jaw tightened. Clara Martinez had worked at Moretti's cafe for 2 years. 2 years of never being late, never complaining, never asking for anything. She smiled at rude customers. She covered shifts when people called in sick. She once told off his enforcer, Marco, for harassing a college kid who couldn't pay his tab, didn't even know Marco worked for Rafael, just saw a bully and stepped in. That took guts. Stupid guts, but guts nonetheless. What about her check? Rafael asked. Still here. She always picks it up Friday, but Jenny trailed off. Something cold settled in Rafael's chest. Clara had a kid, a little boy, maybe 6 or 7. He'd seen them once through the window after closing, the kid doing homework at a corner booth while Clara wiped down tables. The boy had been coughing pretty badly that night. Rafael pulled out his phone and walked into his office at the back. He dialed a number he used for problems that needed solving quietly. Vincent. I need an address. Whose? His driver's gravelly voice came through. Clara Martinez. Works at the cafe. Get it from payroll and meet me out front in 10 minutes. Boss, we got that meeting with. Cancel it. He hung up before Vincent could argue. Rafael stared at the office wall, at the framed photo of his mother. She'd been a waitress too, worked herself to death trying to pay off his father's gambling debts. He was 12 when she collapsed during a double shift. The restaurant owner wouldn't even call an ambulance, said she was probably just tired. She died tired. Rafael shook off the memory. This wasn't about his mother. This was about an employee. A missing employee. That's all. He told himself that twice more before he almost believed it. Vincent pulled up in the black Mercedes exactly 9 minutes later. Rafael slid into the passenger seat. Got the address, Vincent said, handing over a slip of paper. Riverside Apartments. That's the rough side of. I know where it is. Drive. They moved through morning traffic in silence. Vincent knew better than to push when Rafael got like this. Quiet, tense, that look in his eyes like he was remembering things he'd rather forget. Riverside Apartments looked worse in daylight. Cracked concrete, rusted railings, a broken fountain that probably hadn't worked since the 90s. This was where people ended up when everywhere else said no. Rafael had grown up in a place like this, before he learned that power was the only thing that kept you from drowning. Wait here, Rafael said, stepping out. Boss. Wait. Here. He climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, checking apartment numbers until he found 3C. The door was thin, the kind that wouldn't stop a determined kick. He knocked. Once. Twice. 3 times. Nothing. He knocked again, harder. Clara? It's Rafael Moretti. From the cafe. Still nothing, but he heard something, a small sound, like someone trying not to cry. Rafael's instincts kicked in. Something was wrong. Very wrong. He tried the handle. Locked. He pulled out a small tool from his jacket. old habits from his younger, hungrier days, and worked the lock. It gave in 30 seconds. The apartment was dark, curtains drawn. It smelled like medicine and desperation. Unpaid bills covered the coffee table, stacked like accusations. An old space heater hummed in the corner, fighting a losing battle against the cold. And there, on the floor beside a worn couch, was Clara. She looked up at him with hollow eyes, too exhausted to even be surprised. Her dark hair was tangled, her cafe uniform still on from 3 days ago. She was holding a wet cloth, and beside her, wrapped in blankets, was her son. The boy was small, thin, his skin pale except for 2 fever-bright spots on his cheeks. His breathing was shallow, rattling. Clara pressed the cloth to his forehead with shaking hands. "Please," she whispered, her voice broken. "Please don't hurt us. I'll come back to work. I just need 1 more day. He's sick. I can't leave him. I can't." Raphael held up a hand, cutting her off. He stepped closer, crouched down. The boy's fever was dangerously high. He could feel the heat radiating off him. "How long has he been like this?" "4 days." Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks. "I took him to the clinic, but they want $300 up front. I don't have it. I've been trying to bring the fever down myself, but it's not working. It's not working and I don't know what to do." Her voice cracked completely. Raphael pulled out his phone. Clara flinched, like she expected him to call the police, or worse. Instead, he dialed another number. "Dr. Chen.
Rafael Moretti.
I need you at Riverside Apartments, Building C, Apartment 3C.
Now."
"No, not me. A kid. High fever, respiratory distress. I don't care what you're doing. You're a doctor. So act like it." He ended the call and looked at Clara. She stared at him like he'd just spoken a foreign language. "I can't afford. You don't have to. I don't understand. Why are you?" "Because you missed work," Raphael said simply. "And I wanted to know why." He stood, removing his jacket and draping it over the boy. Then he walked to the kitchen, filled a glass with water, and brought it back to Clara.
"Drink."
"When's the last time you ate?" She didn't answer, just stared at the water like it might disappear. Outside, tires screeched. Dr. Chen was fast. He knew better than to keep Raphael waiting. But as Raphael waited for the doctor's knock, his eyes drifted to the bills on the table. One name kept appearing in the creditors section: Moretti Financial Services, his collection agency. And suddenly, Raphael understood everything. Dr. Chen arrived with his medical bag and no questions. That's what Raphael paid him for, discretion and competence in that order. "Move aside," Chen said, kneeling beside the boy. He worked quickly, checking vitals, listening to the child's lungs, taking his temperature. His face remained professionally neutral, but Raphael caught the slight tightening around his eyes. "Pneumonia," Chen said finally. "Early stage but progressing fast. He needs antibiotics immediately, fluids, and rest." Another day or 2 without treatment. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Clara made a sound like something inside her was breaking. "I'll write prescriptions," Chen continued, pulling out his pad. "He should be in a hospital, but if you keep him hydrated and monitor him closely, he can recover here. The fever should break within 48 hours once the antibiotics start working." He handed the prescriptions to Raphael, not Clara. "There's a 24-hour pharmacy on Maple Street. They know me. These will be ready in an hour."
"Good.
"Send me the bill." Chen nodded, packed his bag, and left without another word. The door clicked shut, and silence filled the apartment like a held breath. Clara sat frozen, staring at her son, Eli. Raphael remembered his name now from the payroll forms. The boy's breathing was still labored, but he seemed calmer with Chen's examination complete. "I'll pay you back," Clara said suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Every cent. I'll work double shifts. I'll..." "Stop." She looked up at him, confused. Raphael moved to the window, pulling the curtain aside. Evening was settling over the city, painting everything in shades of amber and shadow. From here, you could see the wealthy side of town, the high-rises, the clean streets, the life Clara would never touch. "How long have you been paying Moretti Financial Services?" he asked, his back still to her. The silence stretched too long. 2 years, she finally admitted. "Since my husband died. He owed money. They said I had to pay it." "How much?" "15,000. I've paid almost 8 so far, but the interest," her voice cracked. "It never goes down. Every month I pay, and it never goes down." Raphael's hands curled into fists. He knew exactly how his collection agency worked. He designed it that way: predatory interest rates, threatening calls, relentless pressure. Good for business. Great for cash flow. He just never thought about the faces behind the account numbers. "Your husband," Raphael said carefully. "What was his name?" "David Martinez. He borrowed money for a business. A food truck. It failed, and then he got sick. Cancer. He died owing everything." She wiped her eyes roughly. "They came to the funeral. Did you know that? They came to my husband's funeral and handed me a payment notice." Raphael did know that. He'd approved that policy himself. "Strike while they're vulnerable," his underboss had said. "They'll pay anything to make us go away." "You've been paying from your cafe salary." "It's all I have. I dropped out of college when Eli was born. Waitressing is all I know. And the cafe pays better than most places, so I stayed. I thought if I just kept paying, eventually," she laughed bitterly. "Eventually, it would end." Raphael turned from the window. Clara looked small sitting on the floor, her cafe uniform wrinkled and stained, her eyes red from crying. She looked like his mother had, near the end, exhausted, defeated, drowning. "You don't owe anything," Raphael said. "What?" "Your husband's debt. It died with him. Legally, you're not responsible." Clara's face went pale. "But they said." "They lied." Raphael's voice was flat, cold. "They've been collecting from you illegally for 2 years. Taking money you needed for your son. For medicine. For food." He watched her process this, watched the realization bloom into something like rage. "You knew." Her voice shook. "You own that company. You knew they were doing this." "No." The word came out harder than he intended. "But I should have. That's on me." "On you." Clara stood up, fists clenched. "My son almost died because I couldn't afford a doctor. I've been eating once a day so he could eat 3 times. I've been paying loan sharks, your loan sharks, instead of buying his medicine. And you say it's on you, like that fixes anything?" Raphael said nothing. What could he say? She was right. "Get out," Clara said. "Take your guilt and your doctor and get out." "Clara."
Out.
Her shout woke Eli. The boy stirred, coughing weakly. Clara immediately dropped back to his side, shushing him gently, her anger transforming instantly into tenderness. Raphael watched her for a moment longer. Then he pulled out his wallet, took out every bill inside, had to be at least 2,000, and set it on the table. "For the prescriptions," he said quietly. "And groceries. And whatever else he needs. I don't want your money. It's not mine. It's yours. Consider it back pay for what was stolen." He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the handle. "I'll fix this," he said. "You can't fix this." "Watch me." Raphael stepped into the hallway, closing the door softly behind him. Vincent was waiting at the bottom of the stairs, and from the look on his face, he'd heard enough. "Boss." "Drive me to the office," Raphael said, his voice like winter. "And call Tony. Tell him I want to see him first thing tomorrow morning." "Tony the collector?" "Yeah." Raphael's smile was dangerous. "We need to have a conversation about his business practices." Raphael didn't sleep that night. He sat in his office above the cafe, staring at a computer screen that made his blood run colder with every click. Files.
Hundreds of them.
Account after account in the Moretti Financial Services database, each one a name, a story, a life being bled dry. Vincent stood by the door, silent. He'd seen Raphael angry before, violent even. But this was different. This was the quiet kind of fury that preceded earthquakes. "Pull up the Martinez account," Raphael said. Vincent typed. The file appeared. David Martinez. Initial loan, $15,000. Date, March 2021. Status, deceased, August 2022. Collections transferred to Clara Martinez, spouse. Raphael scrolled down. Payment after payment. $300 here. $250 there. Every month for 2 years, like clockwork. The balance never dropped below $14,000. "Explain this to me," Raphael said, his voice dangerously soft. "She's paid almost $8,000. Why does she still owe 15? Vincent leaned closer, squinting at the screen. His face went pale. "Boss, these interest rates, they're not what we agreed on. Standard rate is 15% annually. This shows 42%. 42.
Yeah.
And look, there are fees added every month. Late fees, processing fees, collection fees. Some months she paid $300 and only $50 went to the principal." Raphael's jaw clenched so hard his teeth hurt. Who authorized this? According to the notes, Tony DeMarco. There it was. The name Raphael had expected, but hoped he wouldn't find. Tony had been with the organization for 8 years. Reliable, efficient, a little rough around the edges, but good at collecting what was owed. Raphael had promoted him to head of collections 3 years ago, trusting him to run things cleanly. Clearly, that trust had been misplaced. "How many accounts show the same pattern?" Raphael asked. Vincent's fingers flew across the keyboard. A list populated, then kept populating. The number at the bottom climbed. 50 accounts, 100, 200. "Boss, there's over 300 accounts with inflated rates and hidden fees." Raphael stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. He walked to the window overlooking 5th Street. Down below, early morning vendors were setting up. A baker, a newspaper stand. Normal people doing normal work, unaware that above them, a man was realizing he'd built his empire on their bones. "Calculate it," Raphael said. "How much has Tony stolen?" Vincent worked in silence for several minutes. When he finally spoke, his voice was grim. "Conservative estimate? About $2 million over 3 years. Could be more. These records only show what's documented. If he's skimming cash payments." $2 million, Raphael laughed, but there was no humor in it. "He stole $2 million from widows and broke families, and I didn't notice." "You trusted him to run collections." "That's not." "It's exactly my fault." Raphael turned from the window. "I built this system. I told them to squeeze every dollar. I just never asked who they were squeezing." He thought of Clara, working double shifts at minimum wage plus tips, handing over hundreds of dollars every month to pay a debt she never legally owed. He thought of her son, burning with fever, while she rationed medicine she couldn't afford. How many others? How many Claras had he created? "There's more, boss," Vincent said carefully. "More?" "I cross-referenced Tony's accounts with our obituary monitoring system. About 40% of these inflated accounts, the original borrowers, are dead. He's been collecting from surviving family members who don't know the law." Raphael's vision blurred red at the edges. "Get me everything. Every account Tony's touched. Every payment, every fee, every lie. I want documentation." "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done a long time ago." Raphael grabbed his jacket. "Where does Tony live?" "Boss, it's 5 in the morning. I asked where he lives." Vincent sighed. "Westwood. The new luxury condos on Bartlett Street." "Of course. Luxury condos." Tony was living in penthouses built with stolen money, while Clara slept on the floor next to her dying son. "Call him. Tell him to meet me at headquarters. 7 o'clock sharp. Should I bring the guys?" Raphael paused at the door. In the old days, he'd have said yes. Bring muscle. Make it a show. But this wasn't the old days anymore, or maybe it was, and that was the problem. "No," Raphael said finally. "This is between me and Tony. But Vincent. Yeah, boss. Have Dr. Chen deliver those prescriptions to Clara's apartment. Don't knock, just leave them at the door. And have someone drop off groceries. Real groceries, milk, bread, eggs, fruit, whatever a kid needs. Charge it to my personal account. Vincent nodded slowly. You're going soft on us, boss. No, Raphael said, stepping into the hallway. I'm just done being the villain in someone else's story. He took the stairs down, each step echoing in the empty building. Outside, the city was waking up. Delivery trucks, early commuters, the endless machinery of ordinary life. Raphael had spent 20 years building his empire in the shadows of that life, taking from it, controlling it. He'd never once stopped to think about the cost. That ended now. By the time he reached his car, the sun was rising over 5th Street, painting everything gold. Raphael watched it for a moment, remembering a line his mother used to say, "Every sunrise is a chance to start over." He hoped she was right, because in 2 hours, he was going to burn his empire to the ground, one lying bastard at a time. The basement of the Crimson Lounge looked nothing like the upscale club above it. Down here, past the locked door and down the concrete stairs, was where Raphael conducted his real business. No music, no lights, just cold walls and colder decisions. Tony DeMarco arrived at 7 sharp, cocky as ever. He wore an expensive suit, Armani if Raphael had to guess, and gold cufflinks that caught the fluorescent light. His hair was slicked back, his shoes polished to mirrors. He looked successful, comfortable, untouchable. That would change. Boss, Tony said, grinning as he walked in. Vincent said it was urgent. What's going on? The Calabrese situation finally heating up? Raphael sat at the metal table in the center of the room, a manila folder in front of him. He didn't smile back. Sit down, Tony. Something in Raphael's tone made Tony's grin falter. He glanced at Vincent, who stood by the door, arms crossed. No help there. Sure, boss. Whatever you need. Tony pulled out the chair across from Raphael and Saturday. Raphael opened the folder. Inside were printed spreadsheets, pages and pages of highlighted numbers, names, dates. He slid them across the table. Tell me about Clara Martinez. Tony's eye twitched. Just slightly, but Raphael caught it. Martinez? I don't know, we got a lot of accounts. Refresh my memory. Widow. 1 kid. Husband died owing $15,000. She's been paying you for 2 years. Oh yeah. Her, Tony shrugged. What about her? How much has she paid? I'd have to check.
How
much? Tony shifted in his seat. Maybe 7, 8 grand. $7,843, Raphael said precisely. And how much does she still owe? The original 15, minus what she paid, plus interest and fees. Tony waved his hand vaguely. Probably around 14.5. Raphael leaned forward. Try again. According to your records, she still owes $15,237. More than when she started. Well, yeah. Interest compounds, and there are processing fees, late fees. 42% interest. The room went silent. Tony's face paled slightly. Look, boss, the rates are competitive for high risk. Our standard rate is 15%. Who authorized 42? I made a judgment call. These accounts, they're high risk. Dead borrowers, unstable income. Who authorized you to collect from widows at all? Raphael's voice dropped to a whisper. The debt died with her husband. Legally, she owes nothing. Tony opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. Boss, we've always operated in the gray areas. You know that. These people, they don't know the law. They're easy money. I've been running collections for 3 years, and you never. 300 accounts. Raphael slid another page across. 300 people you've been illegally extorting. $2 million in stolen money. Want to tell me where that money went, Tony? Because it sure as hell didn't make it to our books. Tony's cocky mask cracked completely. He looked like a trapped animal searching for an exit. I can explain. Then explain. Raphael's voice was ice. Explain how you've been stealing from widows and orphans while living in a luxury penthouse. Explain how one of my employees couldn't afford medicine for her dying kid because you were bleeding her dry. Explain why I shouldn't put a bullet in your head right now. Tony stood up abruptly, his chair scraping. Now wait a damn minute. Vincent moved from the door, fast and silent. His hand landed on Tony's shoulder, shoving him back down into the chair. The boss didn't say you could stand, Vincent said quietly. Tony was sweating now, his expensive suit suddenly looking like a costume. Raphael, come on. We've known each other for years. I've been loyal. Loyal? Raphael stood, his hands flat on the table. You've been robbing me, robbing the organization. Every dollar you stole, every family you destroyed, that's on my name. My reputation. You made me a villain to people who never even borrowed from me. You were just greedy. Raphael walked around the table slowly, like a predator circling prey. You saw vulnerable people, and you fed on them. And you did it using my name, my authority. Tony's eyes darted to the door, calculating. Vincent stepped in front of it. How many others know? Raphael asked. What? How many others in collections are running the same scam? Tony said nothing. Raphael grabbed him by the collar, yanking him up.
How?
Many. 5. Maybe 6. Tony gasped. We split the profits. Boss, please. We were just trying to increase revenue. Raphael's fist connected with Tony's jaw. The crack echoed like a gunshot. Tony sprawled backward, blood spurting from a split lip. Revenue, Raphael spat. He hit Tony again, this time in the ribs. You call stealing from the dead revenue? Tony curled up, trying to protect himself. Please. Raphael hauled him up and threw him against the wall. The entire room shook. He hit Tony once more, twice, 3 times. Not the controlled violence of a professional, but the raw fury of a man confronting his own sins through someone else's body. Boss. Vincent grabbed Raphael's arm. Boss, stop. You'll kill him. Raphael's fist was cocked back for another blow. Tony's face was a bloody mess, his eyes swollen, his breathing ragged. For a long moment, Raphael held the pose, trembling with rage. Then he let Tony drop. You're done, Raphael said, breathing hard. Stripped of rank. You'll return every stolen dollar, and you'll do it quietly. Then you disappear. If I see your face again, I won't stop next time. Tony nodded frantically, blood dripping onto his ruined suit. Raphael turned to Vincent. Get him out. Spread the word, collections is being audited. Anyone running scams has 24 hours to confess. After that, they end up worse than Tony. Yes, boss. As Vincent dragged Tony toward the stairs, Raphael stood alone in the basement, staring at his bloodied knuckles. The whispers would start now. The boss is going soft. Lost his edge.
Getting weak.
Let them whisper. He had bigger problems than reputation. He had 300 lives to fix. 2 days later, Clara stood in her apartment staring at impossible things. Her kitchen counter was covered in groceries, not the cheap stuff from the dollar store, but real food. Fresh vegetables. Whole milk. A package of chicken breasts.
Elias favorite cereal.
Fruit that didn't come from a dented can. The bills on her coffee table had paid in full, stamped across them in red ink. Electric. Water. Rent for the next 3 months. And on the kitchen table, a receipt showing her debt to Moretti Financial Services had been marked as void, collected in error. Clara's hands shook as she held that receipt. Void. Error. 2 years of her life, reduced to an administrative mistake. Eli was asleep in his room, finally breathing normally. The antibiotics had worked. Dr. Chun had returned yesterday to check on him, refusing payment, just nodding and leaving as mysteriously as he'd arrived. Her son would live. That should have been enough. But rage was a fire in Clara's chest, burning hotter than relief. She grabbed her jacket, looked in on Eli one more time, then knocked on her neighbor's door. Mrs. Chun, no relation to the doctor, was a grandmother who'd helped watch Eli before when Clara was desperate. Can you watch him for an hour? He's sleeping, shouldn't wake up, but just in case. Of course, honey. You okay? You look.
I'll fine.
I'll be back soon. Clara didn't feel fine. She felt like a bomb with a lit fuse. The walk to Moretti's cafe took 20 minutes. With every step, her anger crystallized into something sharp and focused. He thought he could fix this? Throw money at her and erase what he'd done? What his people had done. She'd spent 2 years terrified. 2 years skipping meals, wearing the same 3 outfits, watching her son cough while she counted pennies for medicine. 2 years paying a debt she never owed because men in suits said she had to. And Raphael, Moretti thought groceries made that okay. The cafe was in its afternoon lull. A few customers nursed coffee, working on laptops. Jenny looked up from wiping tables and her face went white. Clara, you're back. Is Eli? Where is he?
Who?
Moretti. Where is he? Jenny pointed toward the back office, her expression nervous. Clara didn't care. She marched past the counter, ignoring the employees-only sign, and threw open the office door. Raphael sat at his desk, reading something on his computer. He looked up, unsurprised. Clara. She slammed the receipt onto his desk. What is this? He glanced at it. Proof that you don't owe anything. I know I don't owe anything. I know your people lied to me for 2 years. Her voice was rising, but she couldn't stop it. You think you can just pay my bills and deliver groceries and that fixes it?
Raphael stood slowly. No.
I don't think it fixes anything. Then why? Why play hero now? Clara's eyes burned. Where were you 6 months ago when I was choosing between Eli's medicine and rent? Where were you a year ago when your collectors called me at midnight threatening to take my son if I didn't pay? Where were you when I was eating 1 meal a day so he could eat 3? Each question landed like a punch. Raphael took them all without flinching. You're right, he said quietly. Don't, Clara's voice cracked. Don't stand there and agree with me like that makes you noble. You built this. You're the reason I've been drowning. You don't get to be my savior. I'm not trying to be your savior. Then what?
What do you want from me?
She grabbed the receipt, crumpled it, and threw it at him. I don't need your pity. I don't need your charity. I need. Her voice broke completely. She stood there, breathing hard, tears streaming down her face, hating herself for crying in front of him. You need it to never have happened, Raphael said. I know, but I can't give you that. So, you give me groceries instead? I give you what I can. He moved around the desk, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. The man who stole from you, he's gone. The others like him, they'll be gone soon. I'm restructuring everything. But that doesn't undo the damage.
No.
It doesn't. They stood there in the small office, the silence heavy between them. I paid back what was taken, Raphael continued. Your bills, your rent. That's not charity. That's restitution. You earned that money. My people stole it. I'm giving it back. And the groceries? The doctor? The doctor was because your son was dying. The groceries, he paused. Call it back pay. You've worked here for 2 years, never complained, never asked for raises you deserved. Consider it a bonus. Clara wiped her eyes roughly. I don't want your money. Then donate it. Throw it away. I don't care. But don't punish yourself to punish me. She stared at him, this man who commanded respect through fear, who built empires on broken backs, who was looking at her now with something almost like shame in his eyes. Why do you even care? She asked quietly.
I'm nobody.
Just a waitress. My mother was a waitress, Raphael's voice was soft. She worked herself to death paying debts she didn't know. I was 12 when she collapsed. I swore I'd never be the reason someone else's mother died. He looked away, jaw tight. But I became exactly that. I just didn't look closely enough to see it. Clara picked up the crumpled receipt from the floor, smoothed it out.
Void.
Error. Such small words for such big damage. I'm coming back to work Monday, she said finally. Not because of this. Because I need the job and Eli needs insurance. But don't think we're square. We're not square, Raphael agreed. We'll never be square. Clara walked to the door, then paused. The man you fired.
Tony.
What happened to him? He won't bother anyone again. She nodded once and left. Raphael stood alone in his office, listening to her footsteps fade. Through the window, he watched her walk down 5th Street, shoulders straight despite everything. His phone buzzed. A text from Vincent. Council meeting tonight. They heard about Tony. They're not happy. Raphael typed back. Good. Let them be unhappy. The reckoning was just beginning. The backroom of Salvatore's restaurant smelled like cigar smoke and old money. Red leather booths lined the walls, and a single chandelier cast shadows that seemed to move on their own. This was where Raphael's council met, 5 underbosses who ran different arms of the organization, and his consigliere, Marcus Webb, who'd been with him since the beginning. They were waiting when Raphael arrived at 9 o'clock. You're late, said Frank Delacroix, head of their gambling operations. He was 50, gray at the temples, with eyes like a shark. I'm here now. Raphael took his seat at the head of the table. The others sat in their usual spots. Tommy Chin ran their protection rackets, Lisa Moreno handled money laundering, James Sullivan controlled their distribution networks, and Paul Ricci managed their real estate holdings. Marcus sat to Raphael's right, his expression carefully neutral. We need to talk about Tony, Frank said, not wasting time. Tony's done. What's there to talk about? You beat him half to death in front of witnesses, Lisa said. Her voice was controlled, but her fingers drummed on the table, a tell. She was angry. Then you stripped him of rank and kicked him out. That's not how we handle internal problems. He was stealing from us. From everyone. So you retire him quietly, Tommy interjected. You don't make a public spectacle. Now people are talking. They're saying you've gone soft. Raphael's jaw tightened.
Soft.
Your word, not mine, Tommy said, holding up his hands. But you've got to admit, boss, the optics are bad. You lose your mind over some waitress and her kid. Don't. Raphael's voice was quiet, dangerous. Don't finish that sentence. Silence fell over the table. Marcus cleared his throat. What Tommy means is that your actions have raised questions. In the past week, you've dismantled a profitable collection operation, beaten one of your own men, and paid off debts worth thousands of dollars. People are wondering about your priorities. My priorities are keeping this organization clean. Clean? Frank laughed harshly. Raphael, we're not clean. We've never been clean. We operate in the gray, and that's how we survive. You knew that when you built this empire. Maybe it's time to change how we operate. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Paul Ricci, who'd been quiet until now, leaned forward. Change how? Raphael, our revenue comes from lending, collections, protection, and gambling. You start playing by the rules, we might as well work at banks. We're not talking about playing by rules, Raphael said. We're talking about not preying on people who can't fight back. Widows. Families. Kids. Since when do you care about that? Frank's voice was sharp. 3 months ago, you approved expanding collections into the South Side. Now suddenly you have a conscience. 3 months ago, I didn't see what it actually looked like. One woman, Frank said, shaking his head. One woman and her sob story, and you're ready to tear down everything we built. Raphael stood abruptly, his chair scraping. That one woman was being robbed by our people while her son was dying. Tony was stealing millions using our name, making us enemies in every neighborhood. You think that's good for business? We've always had enemies, Lisa said. That's the nature of what we do. Maybe we shouldn't be doing it anymore. The room went dead silent. Marcus closed his eyes briefly, like he'd been dreading this moment. The others stared at Raphael like he'd started speaking in tongues. What are you saying? Tommy asked carefully. Raphael looked at each of them in turn. I'm saying maybe it's time this empire tore itself down. Frank stood up, so fast his chair fell backward. Have you lost your mind? Sit down, Frank.
No.
I've been with you for 15 years, Raphael. 15 years of building this operation, taking risks, putting my neck on the line. And now you want to throw it all away because you feel guilty? It's not about guilt. Then what? Redemption? Frank laughed bitterly. You think going soft now erases 20 years of what we've done? You think that waitress looks at you and sees anything but the man who destroyed her life? The words hit harder than Raphael wanted to admit. She's right to hate me, Raphael said quietly. And so is every other person we've hurt. That doesn't mean we keep hurting them. So, what's your plan? Lisa asked, her voice cold. We just stop, close up shop? What about the people who depend on us? The businesses we protect? We restructure. Keep protection, but make it actual protection, not extortion. Keep lending, but at legal rates, to people who can actually pay back. We clean up. And go broke in 6 months, Paul interrupted. Raphael, the margins on legal operations are nothing. We'd be lucky to break even. Then we break even. Frank slammed his hand on the table. This is insane. Marcus, talk some sense into him. All eyes turned to the consigliera. Marcus studied Raphael for a long moment, his weathered face unreadable. Raphael, he said finally, I've known you since you were 22 years old. I watched you build this organization from nothing. I've supported every decision you've made, even the ones I disagreed with. But one woman isn't worth tearing down your empire for. You save her, fine. You fix collections, good. But this? He gestured around the table. This affects everyone. Families, livelihoods, power structures across the city. You can't just decide to dismantle it because you feel bad. Raphael sat back down slowly. He looked at their faces, angry, concerned, confused. These were his people. He'd built this with them, for them. But he kept seeing Clara's face, her exhausted eyes, her dying son. I'm not asking for permission, Raphael said. I'm telling you how it's going to be. Frank threw his napkin on the table. Then you're going to be doing it alone. He walked out. After a moment, Tommy followed. Then Lisa. Paul hesitated, looked at Raphael, then shook his head and left. Only Marcus remained. You know they're going to move against you, Marcus said quietly. I know. You're choosing a stranger over your family. No, Raphael said, staring at the empty chairs. I'm choosing to stop being the monster, even if it kills me. Marcus stood, put a hand on Raphael's shoulder. Then I hope she was worth it. He left too. Raphael sat alone in the back room, surrounded by cigar smoke and the ghosts of his own decisions. His empire was cracking, and he'd struck the first blow himself. Sunday afternoon sun painted everything gold. Raphael sat in his car across from Bennett Park, watching through tinted windows. He shouldn't be here. He had a dozen fires to put out, council members plotting, operations falling apart, loyal soldiers questioning his sanity. But he was here anyway. Clara sat on a bench near the playground, a book open in her lap. She wasn't reading it, though. She was watching Eli, who was running around the jungle gym with the manic energy of a kid who'd been sick for too long. His laughter carried across the park, bright and pure. The boy looked healthy. Pink cheeks, clear eyes, full of life. Raphael felt something unfamiliar twist in his chest. He remembered being that age. 7 years old, before everything went dark. His mother would take him to a park not unlike this one, smaller, more rundown, but still a park. She'd pack sandwiches they couldn't afford and pretend they were on a grand adventure. Even then, she'd been exhausted, working doubles at the diner to pay off his father's debts. He remembered the day she collapsed. He'd been playing on the swings, and suddenly she was on the ground, hand pressed to her chest. Other mothers had screamed for help while Raphael stood frozen, watching his world end in slow motion. She died 3 days later. Heart attack, the doctors said. But Raphael knew the truth. The debt had killed her. The stress, the endless work, the crushing weight of owing money to men who didn't care if she lived or died. He'd sworn that day he'd never be powerless again. So he'd built power. Brick by brick, body by body, dollar by dollar. He'd become exactly what his mother had feared, one of the men who crushed people under financial wheels. "Mommy, watch this." Eli's voice pulled Raphael from his memories. The boy hung upside down from the monkey bars, grinning like he'd conquered Everest. Clara looked up from her book and smiled. Really smiled, the first genuine happiness Raphael had seen on her face. "Very impressive, baby. Be careful." Raphael watched them for another moment, then pulled out his phone. He scrolled through his contacts, stopping on a name he hadn't called in months. Richard Chun, his accountant. Not Dr. Chun, different Chun. Raphael was realizing he knew a lot of Chuns. "Richard, I need you to pull files on all our collection accounts for the past 5 years. All of them? Boss, that's thousands. Every single one where the original borrower is deceased, and we're collecting from family members. I want names, amounts paid, current balances. That'll take days. Then start now."
And Richard?
"I want a second list. Everyone we've collected from illegally. Widows, children, anyone who didn't actually owe the debt." Silence on the other end. "Boss, if we're admitting to illegal collections, that's the liability." "I don't care about liability. I care about fixing it."
Can you do it or not? Yeah.
"Yeah, I can do it. But, Raphael, what are you planning?" "The right thing." Finally, he hung up and made another call. This one to Vincent. "I need you to set up accounts. Anonymous accounts can't be traced back to us. We're going to start paying people back." "Paying back who?" "Everyone we stole from. Every widow, every family, every person we bled dry. We're going to make them whole." Vincent was quiet for a long moment. "Boss, do you know how much money that is?" "I don't care. The council will lose their minds." "The council already lost their minds. This is happening, Vincent. With or without them." "Okay," Vincent's voice was steady, loyal. "I'm with you. But Raphael, watch your back. Frank was at Tommy's place last night. They're planning something. Let them plan." Raphael ended the call and looked back at the park. Clara was pushing Eli on the swings now, both of them laughing. A normal Sunday. A normal moment. The kind of thing Raphael had stopped believing in years ago. His phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "You need to see this." An image loaded. It was a photo of Raphael's warehouse on the south side, or what was left of it. Flames still smoldered in the wreckage. Fire trucks surrounded the building. Another text, "No casualties." Happened at 2 a.m. Arson. Message from the council. Raphael stared at the burning building. That warehouse held inventory worth $500,000. The council was making their position clear. Fall in line or watch everything burn. He should have felt angry. Instead, he felt relieved. Let it burn. All of it. The whole rotten structure could collapse. Maybe something better would grow from the ashes. He looked back at Clara and Eli one more time. The boy was showing his mother a dandelion he'd picked, presenting it like a rare treasure. She took it with mock solemnity, tucking it behind her ear. Eli clapped with delight. Raphael started his car. As he pulled away from the curb, he caught Clara's reflection in his side mirror. She looked up, noticed the black Mercedes leaving. For a moment, their eyes met in the reflection, or maybe he imagined it. He drove away, leaving them to their Sunday afternoon peace. That evening, Raphael sat in his study at home, surrounded by files Richard had started sending. Names and numbers swam before his eyes. The Garcia family paid $12,000 on a $8,000 debt. The Johnsons, still paying 4 years after the borrower died. The Patels lost their restaurant to repossession on a technicality. Hundreds of them. Hundreds of lives crushed under his empire's wheels. Raphael opened his laptop and began transferring money. Anonymous deposits, untraceable. 1,000 here, 5,000 there. It would take months to make everyone whole. It would bankrupt parts of his operation. He didn't care. For the first time in 20 years, Rafael Moretti felt something close to peace. Outside, the sun set over the city. In the darkness, his enemies were gathering. But tonight, for just a few hours, he bought back a piece of his soul. That had to count for something. The gunfire started at 2:47 a.m. Rafael woke to the sound of shattering glass and Vincent's voice screaming through his phone. "Boss, get down." He rolled off the bed as bullets tore through his bedroom window. The night exploded with muzzle flashes, 3 positions, maybe 4, coordinated assault. Professional. Rafael crawled to his nightstand, grabbed the Glock he kept there, and low-crawled toward the hallway. More gunfire erupted from downstairs. His security team, he heard them firing back, shouting coordinates. Then silence. The terrible kind that meant they were dead.
Rafael.
Vincent's voice came from the stairs. "We gotta move now." Rafael ran in a crouch, meeting Vincent at the landing. His driver's face was bloody, a gash across his forehead. Behind him, Richard the accountant clutched a laptop bag like it was the only thing keeping him alive. "How many?" Rafael asked. "At least 10. They came through the front and back simultaneously. Tony, Marcus, and Frank's guys. Vincent fired 3 shots down the stairs. "They want you dead, boss." Marcus. The name hit like a bullet itself. His consigliera had chosen a side, and it wasn't Rafael's. The garage. Through the kitchen, Rafael led them through the smoke-filled hallway. Behind them, footsteps pounded up the stairs. Voices shouted, "Second floor. Find him." They burst into the kitchen. A man in black tactical gear stood by the refrigerator, gun rising. Rafael shot him twice in the chest before the man could aim. The body fell, and they jumped over it. The garage was chaos. Rafael's cars were blocked by a black SUV. Someone had planned this carefully, cut off all the exits. "The Ducati," Vincent said, pointing to Rafael's motorcycle in the corner. "That only fits 2. Then you 2 go. I'll hold them off." Vincent was already positioning himself behind a concrete pillar. "Vincent. Boss, go." Vincent fired back toward the kitchen door as shadows appeared. "You die. This was all for nothing. Richard has the files, the evidence, everything. Get them out." Rafael hesitated 1 second too long. An explosion rocked the garage. Someone had thrown a grenade. The blast threw them all sideways.
Rafael Siron.
Through the smoke, he saw Vincent struggling to his feet, blood streaming from his nose. "Go!" Rafael grabbed Richard, hauled him toward the motorcycle. His hands shook as he started it. Years since he'd ridden, but muscle memory kicked in. The engine roared to life. Behind them, Vincent's gun barked 3 times, then 6 more. Then silence. Rafael didn't look back. He couldn't. The Ducati screamed out through the garage's side exit, bullets sparking off the concrete behind them. Richard clung to Rafael's back, the laptop bag pressed between them. They burst onto the street, tires squealing, and Rafael opened the throttle. The mansion exploded. The shockwave nearly threw them off the bike. Rafael fought for control as flames consumed his home. 20 years of his life, his mother's photos, everything, just gone in a pillar of fire. "They're following," Richard screamed. Rafael checked the mirror. 2 black SUVs, headlights cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. This wasn't just a hit. This was an extinction. He cut through an alley, the Ducati's narrow frame barely fitting. The SUVs couldn't follow. Rafael used every shortcut he knew, every back route, every shadow.
His city. His territory.
They'd chosen the wrong place to hunt him. 20 minutes later, they stopped at an abandoned factory by the docks. Rafael killed the engine, and they sat in the darkness, breathing hard. "Vincent?" Richard asked quietly. Rafael said nothing. He didn't have to. Richard clutched his laptop bag tighter. He saved these files. All the evidence of what they've been doing. Names, dates, everything. "Good," Rafael's voice was hollow. "At least he died protecting something that mattered." They sat in silence, watching the sky lighten in the east. Raphael's phone was dead, probably destroyed in the explosion. No way to contact anyone. No way to know who else had betrayed him. What now? Richard asked. Raphael looked at the factory, at the broken windows and rusted equipment. He'd owned this place once, used it for storage. Now it might be his tomb. Now we figure out who's left standing. Raphael stood, his body aching from the blast. The council turned on me. Marcus turned on me. How many others? I don't know. But boss, Richard pulled out his laptop, powering it on. Before everything went to hell, I finished the lists you wanted. Every illegal collection. Every stolen dollar. It's all here. The laptop screen glowed in the darkness. Hundreds of names. Thousands of transactions. A complete record of Raphael's sins. Why did you grab that? Raphael asked. Why not just run? Richard looked at him with tired eyes. Because Vincent died protecting it. Because you were trying to fix things. Because he shrugged. Because somebody has to do the right thing, even when it's too late. Raphael's chest tightened. Two men had just sacrificed everything for his redemption arc. Vincent was dead. Richard was here, bleeding and scared, but still here. They'll come after Clara, Raphael said suddenly. What? Frank, Marcus, the others. They know she's why I changed. They'll think she's leverage. Raphael's blood ran cold. They'll go after her and her son. Boss, we barely escape with our lives. We can't. I have to warn her. Raphael looked out at the city, at the distant lights of 5th Street where Clara lived, where Eli slept safely for now. His empire had turned against him. His home was ash. His closest friend was dead. But if they touched Clara, if they hurt that boy, Raphael would burn the whole city down. Starting with everyone who'd betrayed him. Clara woke to sirens. Not unusual in her neighborhood, there were always sirens. But these were close, multiple police cars, their lights painting her bedroom walls red and blue. She got up, went to the window, and looked down. Four police cruisers blocked the street. Officers were talking to Mrs. Chun, her neighbor, who kept pointing up at Clara's building. One cop looked up, and Clara instinctively stepped back from the window. Her heart hammered. This was about Raphael. It had to be. She checked on Eli, still asleep, thank God, then threw on jeans and a sweater. Someone knocked on her door, hard and official. Mrs. Martinez? Police. We need to talk to you. Clara's hands shook as she opened the door. Two detectives stood there, badges out. The woman was in her 40s, short hair, tired eyes. The man was younger, built like he spent his life in the gym. Mrs. Martinez, I'm Detective Sarah Reeves. This is Detective John Moss. May we come in? What's this about? It's about Raphael Moretti. We understand you work for him. Clara's stomach dropped. I work at his cafe. I'm just a waitress. When's the last time you saw him? Thursday, I think. At work.
Why?
What happened? The detectives exchanged glances. Detective Reeves spoke carefully. There was an incident at his residence early this morning. Multiple casualties. Mr. Moretti is missing. We're talking to anyone who might know his whereabouts. Missing. Casualties. The words felt unreal. I don't know where he is. I barely know him. He's my boss, that's all. That all? Detective Moss pulled out a photo. It showed Clara outside the cafe, talking to Raphael.
Someone had been watching them.
You were seen arguing with him 2 days ago.
Yes. About work stuff.
A schedule conflict. She was lying and they knew it. But what was she supposed to say? Oh, he paid off my illegal debts and saved my son's life after I found out his organization had been robbing me for 2 years. Mrs. Martinez, Reeves said gently, if Mr. Moretti contacts you, you need to tell us. For your safety. There are dangerous people looking for him, and if they think you're connected. I'm not connected to anything, Clara's voice rose. I serve coffee. I take orders. That's it. Eli appeared in the hallway, rubbing his eyes. Mommy? Who are they? Clara's protective instincts kicked in immediately.
Nobody, baby.
Go back to bed. We're just leaving, Reeves said, handing Clara a card. Call us if anything unusual happens. Anything at all. They left. Clara locked the door, checked the lock twice, then pulled Eli into a hug. What's wrong? He asked, sensing her fear. Nothing. Everything's fine. But everything wasn't fine. Clara spent the rest of the morning packing. She didn't have much: clothes, some toys, important documents. If Raphael was in trouble with people dangerous enough to attack his home, she wanted to be far away when they came looking for connections. Mrs. Chen knocked around 10. Honey, those police scared me. What's going on? I don't know, but we're leaving for a few days. Visiting my sister upstate. Clara didn't have a sister. Mrs. Chen didn't question it. By noon, Clara and Eli were in her ancient Honda, heading toward the highway. She had maybe $300, enough for a motel and food for a week. Then she'd figure something out. Maybe another city. Maybe change their names. She was 2 blocks from the on-ramp when a black car pulled behind her. Clara's breath caught. She pressed the gas. The black car matched her speed. Mom? Eli looked worried. It's okay, baby. She took a sudden right turn. The black car followed. Clara's heart pounded so hard she could hear it. She took another turn, then another, trying to lose them in the maze of streets. The black car stayed with her. Clara pulled into an alley. Mistake. She realized it too late.
Dead end.
She slammed on brakes, threw the car in reverse, but the black car blocked the exit. Lock your door, Clara told Eli, her voice shaking. Don't open it for anyone. She grabbed her phone, ready to call 911, when the driver's door of the black car opened. Raphael stepped out. He looked like he'd been through a war. His clothes were torn and bloody, his face bruised, his left arm hanging awkwardly. But he was alive. Clara's emotions crashed together: relief, anger, fear, confusion. She got out of her car. What the hell are you doing? Following you. Making sure you're safe. Safe? The police were at my apartment. They think I'm connected to you. You are connected to me. That's the problem. Raphael limped toward her, grimacing with each step. My people turned on me last night. Tried to kill me. My house is gone. My friend is dead. And they know about you. Clara felt ice in her veins. Know what about me? That you're why I changed. They think you're leverage. They'll come after you to get to me. Then stay away from me. Clara's voice cracked. I don't want your protection. I don't want any of this. Too late. You're already in it. Because of you. Everything bad in my life has been because of you. Raphael flinched like she'd hit him. I know. Eli's voice came from the car. Mom? Is that the cafe man? Clara turned. Eli had unlocked his door, was climbing out despite her orders. Kids never listened when it mattered. Eli, get back in the engine roared. Clara spun around. Another car, a silver sedan, screeched into the alley entrance, blocking them incompletely. 3 men got out. Clara didn't recognize them, but Raphael did. His face went pale. Get behind me, Raphael said quietly, pulling a gun from his jacket. Clara grabbed Eli, pulled him close. Her son was asking questions she couldn't answer. The 3 men walked toward them slowly, guns already drawn. Raphael Moretti, the lead man said. He was middle-aged, gray hair, expensive suit under a bulletproof vest. You've been a difficult man to find. Marcus, Raphael's voice was cold. Didn't expect you to do the dirty work yourself. For you? I'll make an exception. Marcus's eyes flicked to Clara and Eli. Mrs. Martinez. Wrong place, wrong time. My condolences. Clara understood then. They weren't just here for Raphael. They were here to leave no witnesses. Take the boy and run. Raphael's voice was steady despite the odds. 3 guns pointed at them. Marcus's cold smile, the alley walls closing in like a trap. I'm not leaving you, Clara said, though every instinct screamed to grab Eli and run. Yes, you are. Raphael didn't take his eyes off Marcus. On 3. I'll create an opening. You run for the fire escape on your left. Don't look back.
Rafael.
1. Marcus raised his gun. Touching. Really? But nobody's running anywhere. 2. Clara's arms tightened around Eli. The boy was shaking, too scared to even cry. 3. Raphael fired twice and Dove left. The alley exploded with gunfire. Clara ran, half dragging Eli toward the fire escape. Bullets sparked off the brick wall inches from her head. She didn't think, just moved, hauling her son up the metal ladder. Below, the gunfight raged. Raphael had taken cover behind a dumpster, returning fire. One of Marcus's men fell, clutching his leg, but Raphael was outnumbered and wounded. Keep climbing, Clara screamed at Eli. They reached the second-floor landing. Clara looked down. Raphael was limping badly now, blood spreading across his side. Marcus and his remaining man were advancing, using cars as cover. Raphael fired again.
Click.
Empty. Clara watched in horror as he threw the useless gun aside and charged. Not away, toward them. Toward Marcus. He crashed into the first gunman, a brutal tackle that sent them both sprawling. Raphael's fist connected with the man's jaw once, twice. Then he grabbed the fallen gun and rolled. Marcus fired. The bullet caught Raphael in the shoulder. He spun but didn't go down, firing back from his knees. Marcus ducked behind the silver sedan.
Rafael.
Clara screamed. He looked up, blood streaming from multiple wounds. Their eyes met. In that moment, Clara saw everything: his regret, his determination, his acceptance that this was how it ended. Get him out of here, Raphael mouthed. Then he stood impossibly, stupidly, and charged at Marcus's position. Clara didn't wait. She pulled Eli up the last ladder, onto the roof, and ran. Behind her, more gunshots. She didn't count them. Didn't want to know which one found its target. They crossed 3 rooftops before Clara's legs gave out. She collapsed behind an air conditioning unit, Eli sobbing in her arms. Is he dead?
Eli whispered.
Is the cafe man dead? Clara didn't answer. She held her son and listened to the distant sirens and tried not to imagine Raphael bleeding out in that alley. 3 hours later, they were in a women's shelter on the east side. Clara had given a fake name, said they were running from an abusive ex. The woman at the desk hadn't asked questions. Eli finally slept, exhausted from fear. Clara sat awake, staring at the walls, replaying everything. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Clara, Raphael's voice was barely a whisper. You made it out. Oh my God. You're alive. For now, he coughed, a wet sound that made Clara's chest tighten. Marcus is dead.
His men are dead.
But I'm not doing great. Where are you? The factory. The docks. Where I told you about. His breathing was labored. I need you to do something for me. Raphael, you need a hospital. Hospital means police. Police means questions. Questions get you involved, he coughed again. Listen. Richard. My accountant, he's here. He has a laptop. Everything's on it. All the evidence of what we did, who we hurt. I need you to take it. Why me? Because you're the only person left I trust, his voice was fading. Take it to the police. Tell them everything. The collections, the scams, all of it. Let them tear it all down. I'm not leaving Eli to. Bring him. It's safer than staying hidden. Once the truth is out, they can't touch you. You're a witness, not a target, he paused, breathing hard. Please, Clara. Let something good come from this. Clara closed her eyes. Every rational part of her brain screamed to hang up, to disappear, to protect her son from this nightmare. But she thought about the 2 years of illegal payments. The other families still being bled dry. The system Raphael had built that would just keep grinding people up unless someone stopped it. Where exactly? She asked quietly. He gave her the address. Thank you, he whispered. For everything. For standing up to Marco that night. For showing me what I'd become. The line went dead. Clara sat there, phone pressed to her ear, listening to silence. Mom? Eli's sleepy voice. Where are we going? She looked at her son, this beautiful, innocent child who'd almost died because of debts he never owed, who'd almost been killed in an alley because his mother made coffee for the wrong man. We're going to end this, Clara said. She grabbed their bag, took Eli's hand, and walked out of the shelter. The factory was 40 minutes away by bus. Dawn was breaking when they arrived, an abandoned warehouse by the water, windows broken, graffiti covering the walls. Clara found Richard sitting outside, clutching a laptop, covered in blood that wasn't his. He sent you, Richard said. Not a question. Where is he? Richard pointed inside. He wanted to watch the sunrise. Said it reminded him of his mother. Clara told Eli to wait with Richard, then walked into the factory alone. She found Raphael in a shaft of morning light, slumped against a concrete pillar. 2 bullet wounds in his chest, 1 in his side. Blood everywhere. His eyes were open, watching the sun paint the sky gold through the broken roof. You came, he said, smiling weakly. Clara knelt beside him. You're dying. Yeah, he didn't seem scared. But I saw one good thing first. You and Eli safe. That counts for something. Raphael. Take the laptop. Give it to Detective Reeves. She's clean. She'll use it. His hand found hers, cold and trembling. Promise me you'll start over. New life. New name if you need to. Take Eli somewhere safe. What about you? This is where my story ends right. He coughed, blood on his lips. I wanted to see one good thing come for me. And I did. You're free. Really free. Tears streamed down Clara's face. I still hate you. Good. You should. His smile was sad, genuine. But maybe tell Eli that the cafe man tried to do one decent thing at the end. His eyes were closing. Raphael, stay awake. Clara, his voice was barely audible now. Thank you for reminding me I was human. The light in his eyes dimmed. His hand went slack in hers. Clara sat there as sirens wailed in the distance, holding the hand of a man who destroyed her life and then died trying to fix it. The sunrise painted everything gold, indifferent to tragedy. Clara didn't know how long she sat there, holding Raphael's hand as it grew cold. The sunrise he'd wanted to see spread across the factory ruins like spilled paint, amber and gold and crimson, beautiful and terrible at once. She wondered if his mother had seen sunrises like this, working those double shifts, dying tired and broke. She wondered if Raphael had thought about her in those final moments.
Mom.
Clara turned. Eli stood in the doorway with Richard, his small hand gripping the accountant's sleeve. The boy's eyes were wide, taking in the scene, his mother kneeling beside a body, blood everywhere, morning light making it all look surreal. Is he sleeping? Eli asked softly. Clara's throat tightened. Yes, baby. He's sleeping. Will he wake up? She looked at Raphael's face, peaceful now, finally free of whatever demons had chased him.
No.
He won't wake up. Eli was quiet for a moment. Then he saved us. In the alley.
Yes.
He did. So, he was good. Clara didn't know how to answer that. Was Raphael good? He'd built an empire on suffering. He'd approved policies that destroyed families. His organization had stolen from her for 2 years, nearly killed her son through neglect. But he'd also tried to fix it. He'd beaten his own men for lying. He'd paid back what was stolen. He'd died protecting her and Eli from the monster he'd created. He tried to be, Clara said finally. At the end, he tried. Richard stepped forward, still clutching the laptop. We need to leave. Police will be here soon, and we need to decide what we're doing with this. He gestured to the laptop. Clara gently laid Raphael's hand down and stood. Her legs were numb from kneeling. He wanted us to take it to the police. Detective Reeves. You understand what that means? Richard's voice was strained. Everything comes out. The collections, the corruption, all of it. His whole organization gets exposed. Good. But you'll be involved. You'll have to testify. Tell them everything. They'll dig into your life, question you for months. I don't care. Clara's voice was stronger than she felt. How many people are still being robbed by his system? How many families are paying debts they don't owe? Richard nodded slowly. Hundreds, maybe thousands across the years. Then we end it. Today. She took one last look at Raphael. In death, he looked younger somehow, not the feared Mafia boss, just a tired man who'd carried too much weight for too long. I hope you found what you were looking for, she whispered. Then she took Eli's hand and walked toward the sunrise. Detective Reeves arrived at the precinct at 8 a.m. to find Clara Martinez and a blood-covered accountant in the waiting room, a laptop between them. Mrs. Martinez, I need to talk to you. About Raphael Moretti. About everything. They sat in an interrogation room. No, an interview room, Reeves corrected. Clara wasn't a suspect. She was a witness. Richard opened the laptop. Files appeared on the screen. Thousands of them. This is a complete record of Moretti Financial Services' illegal operations, Richard said, his voice hollow from exhaustion. Every fraudulent collection, every inflated interest rate, every widow and family they extorted. Names, amounts, dates. Everything. Reeves leaned forward, eyes scanning the data. Her expression shifted from skepticism to shock to grim determination. Where's Moretti? Dead, Clara said. At the docks. His own people killed him.
Or he killed them.
I'm not sure which happened first. And you were there?
Yes. He called me.
Told me to take the laptop and expose everything. Clara met the detective's eyes. He wanted one good thing to come from his life. This is it. Reeves was quiet for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone. Captain? I need the Financial Crimes Unit. All of them. And a warrant team. Yes, right now. We're taking down a criminal organization. She hung up and looked at Clara. This is going to get ugly. Press, lawyers, probably death threats. Are you sure? Clara thought about the bills stacked on her coffee table. The empty medicine bottles. Eli burning with fever, while she chose between food and treatment. She thought about Raphael's last words. Let something good come from this. I'm sure. The next 6 hours were a blur. Detectives, FBI agents, federal prosecutors. Clara told her story again and again. The illegal collections, Tony's threats, Raphael's attempt at redemption. Richard corroborated everything, pulling up files to prove each claim. By afternoon, raids were happening across the city. Moretti Financial Services, the Crimson Lounge, a dozen shell companies, and front operations. Agents seized computers, arrested the remaining council members, froze bank accounts. The empire Raphael built was crumbling in real time. Clara watched it on the break room TV, Eli asleep in her lap. News helicopters showed police leading Frank Delacroix out in handcuffs. Then Tommy Chun. Then Lisa Moreno. Mrs. Martinez? A young prosecutor approached. We've reviewed the evidence. You and approximately 300 other families were defrauded of payments. We're setting up a restitution fund. You'll get back everything you paid plus damages. Clara nodded numbly. Money. After everything, it came back to money. There's something else. The prosecutor handed her an envelope. This was in Moretti's safety deposit box. He designated you as beneficiary if anything happened to him. Filed it a week ago. Clara opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a deed to an apartment building. Her apartment building. And a letter. Clara, by the time you read this, I'll probably be dead. The council won't let me dismantle what we built. They'll come for me, and I'll deserve it. This building is yours now. Free and clear. Do what you want with it. Sell it. Rent it. Burn it down. I don't care. I just wanted you to own something that couldn't be taken away. I wanted to see one good thing come for me. I'm sorry for everything. For your pain. For Eli's suffering. For the 2 years I stole from you. Sorry doesn't fix it. Nothing fixes it. But maybe this is a start. Live well. That's the best revenge. Clara read it twice, tears blurring the words. Around her, the precinct buzzed with activity, the systematic destruction of a criminal empire. Evidence tagged. Charges filed. Justice, finally, grinding forward. But all she could think about was a dying man watching the sunrise, hoping one good deed would balance against a lifetime of bad ones. Mom, Eli stirred, rubbing his eyes. Can we go home now? Clara folded the letter carefully and tucked it back in the envelope. Yeah, baby, she said, her voice breaking. We can go home. And for the first time in 2 years, she actually believed it. 6 months later, the coastal town of Seabrook was everything the city wasn't: quiet, slow, clean. The kind of place where people knew their neighbors and left their doors unlocked. Where kids rode bikes without supervision and the biggest crime was someone's dog getting into someone else's trash. Clara stood outside her new cafe, watching the ocean waves crash against the rocks. The sign above the door read Moretti's Promise in simple, elegant letters. She debated the name for weeks, but ultimately decided Raphael's attempt at redemption deserved to be remembered, even if his sins couldn't be forgotten. The cafe was small, 12 tables, a counter, an espresso machine that actually worked. She'd used the money from selling her old apartment building to buy this place. The restitution fund had helped too. Between that and Raphael's final gift, she'd had enough to start over properly. Really start over.
Mom.
The cranberry muffins are ready, Eli called from inside. Clara smiled. Her son had grown in 6 months, taller, healthier, happier. The nightmares about the alley had finally stopped last month. His therapist said he was resilient. Clara knew he was just tired of being scared.
She walked inside.
The cafe smelled like coffee and fresh pastries. Morning light streamed through the windows, painting everything warm. 3 customers sat at different tables, locals, regulars already. Mrs. Chun from next door, a different Mrs. Chun, no relation to anyone from her old life. Mr. Jacobson, the retired teacher. Sarah, the young mother with twins who always ordered decaf. Normal people living normal lives. These look perfect, Clara said, examining Eli's muffins. You're getting good at this. Can I be a baker when I grow up? You can be anything you want. The bell above the door chimed. A man in a delivery uniform entered, carrying a small package. Clara Martinez? That's me. He handed her the package and left. Clara turned it over. No return address, just her name and the cafe's address. Her stomach tightened. Even after 6 months, unexpected packages made her nervous. She opened it carefully. Inside was a sealed envelope and a single photograph. The photo showed Raphael's old cafe on 5th Street. But it looked different, renovated, repainted, a new sign. Second Chances Cafe, a banner read under new management. Clara's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. The letter was from Richard. Dear Clara, I hope this finds you well in your new life. I am writing to tell you what happened to the old cafe. After the trials concluded and the assets were redistributed, I purchased Raphael's cafe from the city. I've reopened it as a non-profit. All proceeds go to families affected by predatory lending. We also offer free meals to anyone who needs them. No questions asked. I thought you'd want to know. Raphael built something that hurt people, but maybe we can turn it into something that helps them instead. There's something else. We found a box in Raphael's office safe. Inside were letters, dozens of them. Letters he wrote but never sent. One was addressed to you. I've enclosed it. I don't know what it says. That's between you and him. Take care of yourself and Eli. Richard. Clara set Richard's letter aside and picked up the second envelope. Her name was written on it in Raphael's angular handwriting. The paper was worn, like he'd carried it in his pocket for a while. She almost didn't open it. Part of her wanted to throw it away, let the past stay buried. But she opened it anyway. Clara, if you're reading this, I'm probably dead. Good. I deserve it. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even want it. What I did to you and Eli and hundreds of others can't be forgiven. But I need you to know something. When you stood up to Marco that night, when you defended that kid without knowing who Marco was or what he could do, you reminded me that people like you exist. People who do the right thing even when it costs them. I'd forgotten that kind of person was real.
My mother was like that.
She worked herself to death, trying to do right by me. I watched her die, and I swore I'd never be powerless again. But I became the thing that killed her. I became the debt collector, the predator, the monster.
You made me see that.
And I hated you for it. Then I saw Eli, sick and dying while you paid my collectors instead of buying his medicine, and I hated myself more. I can't undo the damage. But maybe I can stop it from continuing. Live well, Clara. Raise that beautiful boy. Build something good. Let your life be the good thing that came from mine. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for showing me what I'd lost. I hope you find peace.
Rafael Moretti.
Clara folded the letter slowly, tears streaming down her face. She walked to the wall behind the counter, where she'd hung a single picture, the old Moretti's Cafe logo, the one from Raphael's place. She'd kept it as a reminder. Not of him, but of survival. Of starting over. Of second chances. Mom? You okay? Eli appeared beside her. Clara wiped her eyes and smiled. Yeah, baby.
I'm okay.
Who was the letter from? An old friend. Someone who made mistakes, but tried to fix them at the end. Did he fix them? Clara looked at the photo of the renovated cafe, at Richard's letter about helping families, at her own cafe full of peaceful morning customers. I think he's still trying, she said quietly. The bell chimed again. More customers. The morning rush was starting. Clara tucked the letter into her apron pocket and got to work, taking orders, making coffee, serving food. Simple, honest work. The kind her own mother would have been proud of. Outside, waves crashed against the shore in their endless rhythm. The sun climbed higher, burning away the morning fog. In the distance, a child's laughter carried on the wind. Clara paused at the window, coffee pot in hand, and watched Seabrook wake up to a new day. Somewhere in the city, Richard was opening Second Chances Cafe, serving free meals to people who needed them. Somewhere, families were receiving restitution checks, finally free of debts they never owed. And somewhere, maybe, a man's final act of redemption was still rippling outward, touching lives he'd never meet. Clara smiled softly and returned to the counter where Eli was arranging muffins, humming to himself.
Hey, Ellie.
Yeah, Mom? I'm proud of you. You know that. He grinned.
I know.
You tell me every day. Good. Don't forget it. The bell above the door rang softly, a gentle sound, like a promise kept. For the first time in what felt like forever, Clara's life was her own.
No debts.
No fear. No looking over her shoulder. Just mornings filled with coffee and sunlight, and a son who would grow up knowing his mother fought for their freedom and won. That was enough. That was everything.
The end.